Good morning, everyone. Why don't we motion and second our meeting minutes from September 23rd?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any, all in favor?
Aye.
We have the agenda that Vince sent out late last week. I'm not sure
Vince
if
is up there.
Trevor's coming, so I don't know how deep we can get into it without Trevor here. But the first point is the organization's conservation's assessment or statement of need. We can't do that, of course, until we have more funding, right?
It looks like Vince is waiting to get in.
That's what I was looking for.
Good morning. Can you hear us, Vince?
Let me text him.
So assessments, we're waiting for money
For
or
money, we got our quotes done. Do you want to share your? We had Barbara Moore, who was the same assessor who did the Athenaeum come out and at least do an initial survey of both of our collections to give us a price quote. Elizabeth, yours is within a reasonable,
Yeah,
at least within what we had decided. Sorry, do you want me to talk first so you can?
look it up real quick.
Finish? Yeah.
There, yeah, keep going.
We had ours done by her and she estimated it would be about $8,000, which is much more than we thought per institution it would be. So I think we might try to get a second quote just to see
okay.
how that would compare. I also recognize that unlike the Athenaeum and the collection at Strawberry Bank, we have more of a variety of types of objects in terms of textiles, painting, sculpture, silver, china, glassware, all those things, which could just take more time because of the nature of it. But I'd like to get a second quote just to see how hers compares since it's higher than we initially anticipated. And then your quote seemed to be within.
Our
what
quote
we
was
thought.
pretty reasonable,
Yeah.
really reasonable. I thought it was for $4,000 for, I think that was 8 hours. She charges $800 a day. But we focused largely on the archaeological collection and then on the relatively much smaller archival collection. And I do wonder, like, to your point about there's so many different types of things that you are looking to have
Mhm.
preserved. I wonder if if we want to get it all done with the same person, which I'm
Yes.
not necessarily advocating for, but like some of this is just common sense
Mhm.
that she will be spending time like putting down on paper that we could very easily be spending time putting down on paper. So I wonder if a conversation with her about a starting point, saying like,
Mhm.
we know textiles need to be stored this way and furniture this way. I wonder if that would help her narrow it down, if we want to go that way.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a conversation that can be had between our curator and collections manager who know a lot of that stuff.
Exactly.
And who could maybe give her more of that information that she could compile into a report rather than say, we don't need you to tell us exactly
How to treat these
store it.
things.
We know that.
Mhm.
We just need you to put it all in a report so we can
Yeah.
have it compiled in a place together to move us along
Exactly.
the right route. So.
It seems to me that we, I guess, which is sort of a little bit of a flip response, is like, we just need a professional to acknowledge, to give us this report.
Yes,
It's not necessarily that we don't know how to treat these objects.
exactly.
We just need a
exactly.
third party's.
A third party
Correct.
and someone
Yeah.
who can
Confirmation.
do it, someone who can do it who's not a member of our team because as much as Jerry keeps telling me he can do it. I'd
God,
like
I
someone,
bet.
which he can, I'd like someone to come in and do it in a shorter time period than it would take our team to build it into their
Yeah.
regular activities. It's a matter of just prioritizing their work. But I think we could help her. We could
I do
give her a
too.
lot of the information. She doesn't have to come up with it from scratch, so.
The people that do this type of work, do they do it freelance? They work for themselves?
She does in
She does,
particular, yeah.
And they're not necessarily in the area. They just go where the need is.
She is in the area, right?
She is in Newcastle, but she also travels the country.
Yeah.
to do this type of work. I mean, she's a conservator. She's a very high level conservator. Such as you might be familiar with, but she can do an assessment of a collection, which is how we ended up with her, because she's local. Her husband's a very, very, very well-known archaeologist.
And there's something to be said for having the same person who's done all
Yeah,
institutions.
Yeah.
It makes it seem a little more cohesive in that sense. Our quote was just a little higher than we anticipated, so.
What was your quote?
8.
Wow.
For,
and that has to be because of the very
has to be because our
huge
collection is
very,
not big.
right, exactly.
It's 3,000 objects altogether, but we would only be putting into this archive what is not on view, which is a small
fraction.
percent of that, yeah.
Right.
What is
So-
she doing, the assessment for the whole collection?
I don't believe so. I believe Molly just talked to her about what was in the
Oh.
3rd floor.
Wow.
But again, I think it's because we have such a variety
Right.
of different things. And she was saying to Molly, want to open every textile box. He
Oh.
wants to assess every individual object rather than treat them in groups. So I think it's
Yeah.
her
that's
thoroughness, which
necessary.
is great.
Right.
But we just have to figure out how to work with that.
So is the next step going back to a little more limited scope for her to see if it comes down?
Yeah, I think
Or you're
that.
going to get second?
Yeah, I think I can certainly go back and have a conversation with her about how our team can also support her in writing that to hopefully bring the cost down a bit. Which I know Molly did talk to her about, like Jerry and Molly could be available those days to help her and also to provide some of what we already know. So see if she can work with us to get it back down more to the $5,000 range, which is what we were hoping for. So I'll follow up with her.
And I think she was excited to work on this project, so I'm
Yes.
hopeful that she would welcome that feedback.
They're active community members.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she was interested.
Weren't she and her husband at one of our committee open houses at the library?
Oh, I don't know.
I
Hmm,
thought they were maybe at the first one.
I think they were.
Is both the name and what she
Right.
does, it's gonna rings a bell.
It's just a year ago, right?
Yeah, the first of the 2 forms. Did you hear back from Vince? Cause he's not answering me.
Let me see. Oh, yes, I did hear back. I said, can you hear us, Vince? He said no, then he said yes.
Okay. Well, Vince, okay.
What's the next step after the assessment?
Well, we still have to get the lawyers moving, and all that requires is a letter from Vince.
And once the legal piece has been put together, we can go out for money for the second step.
If I'm waiting for the assessment, or is that range in between?
Each unit is doing their own assessments.
The city's paying for the city, Tom's is already done, and we are looking at,
Joint funding
Joint
for
funding.
ours. Grant funding likely.
We don't have to wait for the assessment to be completed to continue on.
No,
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 You just have to wait for the assessments before grants. Submitting.
Yes.
Right.
yeah, at this point, I think we're hoping the timelines move in parallel, that the legal entity is continuing to move forward and be formed while we're doing our conservation assessment. So by the time we're ready to go for those grants, the joint 501c3 is formed and we can apply for those bigger grants under that joint entity. So that's the open plan.
and the timeline, if we use Barbara, the timeline for the assessments is February or so,
Yes,
pretty quick.
which is in fact pretty quick.
very soon.
So is there a report that they give at the end? I'm assuming, is that usually pretty fast after they finish doing the physical assessment?
How long did
She knows I think that when I approached her, I was talking about January and she said, well, I'm working on this other project. It might not be till February. So she knows that we are anxious isn't the right word, but on a path here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would assume, unless Tom has other knowledge, that it would happen fairly quickly, but probably not like the next day.
I would think so.
Yeah. We would think so.
Well, if she charges $800 a day and the quote is for 4,000, that's really just a little over a week's worth of work.
Yeah, a lot of what she does is she has to go through everything. But for the recommendations, it's mostly a sort of cut and paste recommendation based on what type of condition it has. So it's not like she has to start from scratch for each and every object.
I see. So there might be like 10 different categories.
Yep.
Mhm.
Just pick
Yep.
one. What about the city's assessment?
So the city's assessment, I'm still waiting for a couple of people to give me their things, and I will bring that up at tomorrow's department head meeting. And then have to go to Barbara, and I will probably, because of the cost, I will have to go out for 2 other quotes. So if you have any people to recommend, that would be helpful. And then, Vince put the CIP update on here. I was in a CIP meeting last week. So what we had done in the past was we asked for, for this fiscal year, we asked for $150,000, which was way more than we need for the assessment. And for next year, asked for 75,000. And I gave my approval to the CIP process to move that 75,000 out a year because we're gonna have so much left. No matter what I mean, I expect ours to come in higher than yours, but not, maybe not that much. If what you say is true, that, so much of ours is paper,
Yeah.
that maybe it won't be all that much more, but it's not gonna be anywhere near 150,000. So I gave them approval to move the 75,000 we might need in the future out a fiscal year. Because we still have this money we haven't touched yet.
But you have lots and lots and lots and lots of paper.
We do have lots and lots and lots of paper. That's true. Lots. More every day. I was promised in grad school a paperless society. Here
Careful
we
what you wish
are.
for.
30 some years later, and no way. So that's what the CIP update on the agenda is referring to. They'll be voting on the CIP on the 12th. MOU signing? Since Trevor's not here, does somebody else know about?
Was Vince signing that? Was it?
Vince, can you talk to us? I saw you were muted, but can you unmute? You have a voice.
I think we were the last ones to sign and we signed at last month's board meeting.
Yeah.
He's having trouble with his microphone.
Oh, okay. Does he want to send us
I'll ask him.
he can send a chat to me and Zoom and it'll be recorded.
Yeah, I think the issue was how do we get all the signatures on one document, right? And I know there was that email about doing a.
Counterparts.
Doing a
A
public. one.
public, having some sort of press around the signing of it, which
Yeah.
I know there were differing thoughts on that.
I did a short piece for the Athenaeum newsletter, but that's not really public. It's just for the members.
Mhm.
And it doesn't say anything shocking.
Yeah.
To take place later.
You said that they were waiting for everybody to sign the same document.
They need all of our signatures on one document, I believe is what.
That doesn't make
needed.
sense to me for the counterparts. You sign one page, somebody signs another page, somebody put the 3 pages together.
I
If,
think probably it's a ceremony more. ceremony.
yeah, there was the,
For the ceremony.
yes, for the
Right.
photo op or whatever Vince was proposing, so. Yes,
I get it.
Be a ceremonial stapling of all of the
yeah.
parts together.
Paperclip it, so.
Mhm.
And then the nonprofit formation process. I'm not aware of any changes to that yet. We know we're just waiting for the accountants and the attorneys to pull that together.
Mhm.
Any idea, Chuck, how long that usually takes?
I have no idea.
You're
No.
quick with that.
First of all, I'm not their entity, so I don't know how
Yeah.
they operate.
It is
Yes.
probably dependent on what response they get from the state.
But what we're thought they get from us.
Yeah.
Probably more than the mistake.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of actually when we get them,
It's filed, yeah.
and that's a whole, that you're absolutely right, that's a whole other process.
And things like the bylaws can't be touched until that's done. That's the next step. They can't happen concurrently. Forming the bylaws and
That's a
working
big
on,
part of what they're doing.
oh, so it can happen at the same time. You don't have to wait. I didn't know if the type of entity would determine the type of bylaws.
They're gonna have their standard format, and their suggestions, and they're gonna see what our response is. It's a process.
Yeah,
We said, we haven't set up the whole structure, why think structured imagination. That's gonna be a discussion. This is not a normal 501(c)(3). The entity itself and how it governs itself is a big issue for us.
Is it more like a partnership,
Yeah,
like a nonprofit? LLC or something? I don't know
but
why.
this concept of a public information meeting, I trust everybody's been convinced by Richard's email.
Yeah.
Which means don't do it yet.
yeah, I mean, Vince and I wanted to do it. But I understand you and Richard thought that it was too soon.
And nothing to say. And that's all you just said, I don't wanna argue about sizzles and mistakes and all that.
Yeah. But I think the public's not necessarily going to be able to grasp the legal side of it that we're talking about as far as what's the entity gonna be like. I think that's gonna go. I think that information is so detail oriented that even if we mentioned it and because we had answers, I don't think we would even want to include that.
But I think Vince, I don't want to speak for him because his mic is not working, but I think he was thinking of that it would help in fundraising if there was a public awareness of progress. That it didn't have to get deep into the weeds.
What progress?
Progress that
The
we
MOU.
moved forward and we have a memorandum of understanding and we're
That's it.
going forward with the process, yeah.
And the memorandum of understanding is that's the MOU, correct?
Yes, yep.
Vince just texted saying that the city manager is signing that today. Karen,
Oh, great.
Oh, good, good.
I still agree with that, I agree with Dick, we don't have enough, Richard, we don't have enough yet.
Well, it's nice if there could be guideposts for public awareness.
Right.
To know that we're still breathing, that we're, on a respirator, that we're doing
Mhm.
things.
Well, maybe
Cool.
when we do our assessments, we can, take some photographs and then get someone to write an actual article for the actual paper. Does anyone read that?
So they have.
But I mean, I think like a ceremonial thing, I think is maybe not where we're at, but public information. Here are the steps we are taking to achieve this goal. That might be interesting to people who don't necessarily understand what an archive is, I guess.
Yep.
There's people.
Exactly. I mean, we got some of that type of feedback in our 2 sessions that we had, so we kind of know where people are. You get the gamut of people who, I mean, everyone that showed up was interested in it. So
Right.
they actually were more savvy than I expected. But maybe not the legal side of it, but.
But maybe like an article where it's all laid out could explain it all to
Yeah,
our community members who we need money from.
Yes.
a condensed version of our 28-page report. With a little bit more information because we've moved forward since last December.
We haven't moved that much forward yet.
Well,
But
we're setting the
compared-
foundation.
Compared
for
to
it.
the progress of the last 40 years on this project,
Yeah,
we've hit a milestone
yeah,
just by having the MOU.
yeah.
Yeah, and Alan's timeline too, it shows the path. With the grants, the work that Emma and Elizabeth have done, so now we know how everything's gonna fit. That's a lot of work.
I think it would be good to share with the community. I think that maybe we're just thinking it should be done in different ways.
Mhm.
I like mine best.
George has already told everybody else.
See, thanks, George.
Yeah, there's something to be said for transparency that.
Yeah, making people be
nobody
like,
is.
they can be like, oh yeah, I remember that a year ago, like as
Right,
we
that's
actually.
right.
I also think
That's
it can't
public
hurt to
awareness.
bring visibility to the project, especially when we're in need of fundraising. I think
Mhm.
figuring out what the messaging is, if around what we're bringing visibility to in this moment. If it's the fact that we're doing the assessments,
Yeah.
if it's that like picking out what is something that's digestible for the public to understand and that something too that may have some nice photos to go with it. I think the assessments would be one of those things. That could be something, but I think in general, as we think about moving forward, what I'm hearing is having those kind of visibility marketing moments. So we make sure we're updating folks on what we're doing, even if it's not sharing what the legal entity is, because that is still information, but at least progress on what we're doing to show that we're still active and engaged and bring that visibility, especially key fundraising periods, I think it's important.
And the
Right.
importance of doing just that, and just importance of just advertising what you're doing. Public relations.
I agree on the assessment side because it's nice and concrete. I think
Yeah.
if we did the ceremonial signing, it does raise, particularly right now in the community, questions of where are my tax dollars going, and we don't have answers to that. So I like the more concrete of, here's a process, because we can talk a little bit within a press release. Of,
Yes.
okay, here.
When we do it.
When we do it, which would hopefully be later this fall into the early winter, so in the next few months.
I mean, it's a lot better than better. I understand.
Yeah. Well, and I think too with the MOU, because we haven't figured out how membership with other organizations
Right.
is gonna look,
It's
it
gonna
could
come
look a
right
little
out.
more exclusive in a way that we don't want it to, and we
Mhm.
don't have the answers for how
Right.
other organizations will be involved yet, so.
But I would
have
imagine that at the minimum, it would be the Athenaeum renegotiating its 40 deposit agreements.
Yes. Which I'm not sure if you're ready to have those conversations yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
We don't want them to take everything back to
Yes.
the church basements. And
yes,
Right.
correct.
I feel like there will be yet another point where we can have everyone around signing something.
Yeah.
But that's a little further down the road.
And people might have a better understanding of why people are standing around signing something.
Yes, so everyone agrees it's probably something that we would do in late winter, early spring.
Yeah.
As
around
publicity
the
around
assessment.
the assessment.
And I can make sure we photograph when Barbara or whoever is on site, so we
Okay.
can make sure we have photos of that happening.
Timeline review. I know that you said you don't have a lot of changes to the timeline.
Not a ton. I mean, they're just. And I don't know if anybody's got a good notion of when this is happening, but obviously the bylaws need to be enacted, or at least worked on before we do the formation of the board. Sideline conversation with Vince, he said it's gonna be a while yet. So I just put on the timeline, no later than June, but perhaps earlier than that, if anybody's got a better idea. Ongoing, fundraising. It's ongoing. Pro forma budget, that's not gonna be for a while yet, maybe not until later in the summer. Anybody else have anything else they want to put on the timeline, or have a good solid estimate of date?
Do you have the assessments on the timeline?
No, because I wasn't sure when that would be. Does that look like?
I think you could put them down for February.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good, okay, yeah, that's great. For all the assessments? Yeah.
What about,
Mine, if we use the same assessor, mine is gonna be later, probably March or April.
Or maybe, maybe spring, is
So,
February
Okay,
spring?
good.
Be spring, February.
Will be up here.
I'd like that. I mean, I'd
Okay,
like
well,
it tomorrow,
it's a
but
goal. It doesn't mean it's.
yeah, I think so
We have
because
the
if we use the same
So we,
person, she was.
what
Yeah,
we know
right,
what we need to
February, so-
raise,
Great,
and now we
great.
have to
Say-
write the,
Right.
And so if
Request
it
for
was
it.
granted, people will respond that quickly.
some
There's
do,
some do.
yeah, some are rolling,
Realize that.
Yeah, not huge amounts of money this time.
yeah.
Anything else, Alan, you wanted to ask about? Adding things to timeline? I added something this morning that I thought, since we talked about the name of the archive in July, it seemed like it was just 2 meetings ago, but it was July. I just wanted to throw it out there again, just to make sure everyone's still comfortable with it. It's not set in stone. This is just to throw it out there again. Does anyone remember what we chose? Cause I had to look it up. Yes. Yep. So it's the Center for Archival Research of Portsmouth, or CARP, C-A-R-P, and that we would create a tagline later with the word historical somehow in the tagline. That was what we had decided in July.
So I will say that when having the conversation with my board members, there was a lot of, there's no gentler way of saying this, but cringing with CARP as the acronym. So that was a good field test. So we might want to rethink some of the orders of the words. I think all the words are right, but yeah, I'm glad you're raising that because it did not go over to the room. very
It could
well.
be Archival Research Center of Portsmouth.
Yeah.
There you go. That sounds fine.
Can it be park?
We
So
already
it was
have
like
ideas
our-
of
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
public art.
Yeah.
mm.
Otherwise, I like.
Yeah.
Archival.
But what it are what are the letters there? Archival,
Research of.
AR. CP.
What's the problem with carving in?
Don't like fish.
Yeah, well,
Good.
but there's the, to carp about something,
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
plain,
Grouse.
grouse.
How about grouse?
I like the word archival being the first word
Yeah.
in it. So it's ARCP.
That's kind of a.
Well, it could be the it could be ARC for short, because it's on Portsmouth.
So they wouldn't like harp, probably, huh?
Historical,
Historical archive.
archival.
Archives and research.
Funny that you can. Right, because you could also think of the musical instrument, but I was all for the
Oh,
fish. I
yeah.
was thinking of the fish, but.
But also, does it have to be
It doesn't.
Doesn't have to
could
be
it
a
be spelled out?
a real acronym.
No. It'd be better, but no.
Like Strawberry Bank Museum, I don't go around saying,
SBM.
SBM.
Mhm.
I'll do it if
Yeah,
I'm.
but-
Yeah,
kinda
lots of
quick,
people do.
but-
But
Right.
I totally get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's not
But there
an
are
easy
different ways,
flow.
right?
Hmm.
Or like strawberry, people will say Strawberry Bank and. So
I was
think-
reading a newsletter and
Just call it the
it had
bank.
that shortened and I went,
Yeah, true. Like Metropolitan Museum of Art is the Met. It's not, it's not.
Not
M.
M.
O. Okay.
Then it gets close to
Metropolitan-
MOA.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Moore
MOA
is another
does.
M.
Yeah.
Acronyms just taking on a life of their own.
Yes, they do, right.
All right, well, I'm
If
glad I
we're
brought
not
that
gonna
up.
go
So we,
with an acronym, I may recommend replacing center with partnership
oh,
to reflect the nature of the entity.
mm-hmm.
That's good.
So what would that read as?
That's APCP.
No, ARPP. Archival Research Partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, AR,
Portsmouth.
Yes.
EP.
That's good.
Demographic, so.
Yeah,
What is it? Archival what?
Research Partnership of Portsmouth,
Okay.
ARPP.
ARPP. You try that next month to see if that.
Yeah,
Then we
yeah,
got-
why don't we sit on it a month?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good, it's good to sit on these things, let
Yep.
time go by and ask other people's opinions too,
Right.
but careful about who you ask.
ARPP.
On another matter. In terms of the legal thing, I thought we were gonna have a reading of legal committee. That's where we were going. Start moving on the structure, the bylaws, et cetera, which is kind of critical.
So do we need that next meeting set?
We need to set it up. I
Okay.
mean, if that, I take it we have the money.
Tom, we have the money for the, yeah, didn't we have the money for the
Retainer.
retainer?
Yep,
Have
yeah,
we
it's all
raised-
ready to go. I need a letter from Vince
Yes, I remember that.
saying, pay the lawyers.
Good letter.
Yeah.
Can Vince hear us? Unclear.
I'll send him an
think so. I
email
think
when I
it's
get
just his
back to the
microphone.
office.
Yeah,
What we really need is Trevor. I mean, he's the one that's, but I thought the next major step was the meeting of that committee. Preparation for a meeting of this full committee.
I think you're right.
who's on Trevor's committee?
And Jeff?
Jeff,
Yeah,
Jeff?
But didn't you meet once since we met within the last month? No.
no. I think Trevor's in good contact with her.
Vince just said. He can hear, he just can't talk. Emma needs to be on the committee, but you are in the committee, correct?
yes, he asked me at the last meeting to join.
Yep.
I said yes, but to my understanding, there hasn't been a
There hasn't been a
meeting
meeting yet.
since I agreed to join.
Okay, but you're officially on it.
Sure, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we did it.
Or is it a working group?
Yeah,
I know.
working group,
What it
yes.
is.
There we
What
go.
it is.
What's the name of the group exactly?
Legal.
Legal working group.
Okay,
Work group.
you're right. Any other new business?
I can just report that I just got back from a week in Cincinnati at the Membership Libraries Conference, and I gave them an outline of what we're doing here, and they were very excited.
Oh, wow.
Did anyone say, oh, we're trying to do something similar
No,
in Milwaukee?
Why were they excited?
because nobody's ever done it before.
Maybe we should present it NEMA next year on this.
Hmm.
It's a bit more informed. Which is the New England Museum
Really?
Association Conference. Which is happening in 2 weeks.
If they could never
Oh,
get
we
their
could let-
organization.
Do you ever get to go national?
Do it.
Oh,
Like
there
a-
are 3 in New
Yes,
York and
like
they don't even
a-
talk to each other.
It's called the Cincinnati Library Group?
No, it's
No, it's
the Membership
Wow.
Libraries Group of America.
I never figured that. It's that endemic.
Oh, yeah.
Membership Library Group of America?
No, it's
That's a
something
history
to-
class.
Everybody just
Yeah.
is.
Right.
Yep.
I suspect over the past 40 years, there've been times when.
But yeah, we should definitely think about doing something. on
Correct.
NEMA.
Mhm.
take it-
Yeah,
take
that's a good idea.
It's a idea that other museums could band together.
Yeah.
Do in terms of a.
Did you hear what he said about New York?
Oh, there are 3 membership libraries in New York and they don't really even talk to each other.
Sounds about
Except-
right.
That's- yeah,
Except
that's
when
New
they
York.
show up at our annual meeting. They,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Do they
some-
have like wildly different?
yes,
Oh.
silos.
missions. You mean?
Yeah.
They're all in silos. It's the little thing.
For whatever it means for a quorum, I just have to leave in about 10 minutes.
We're on new business, which is the last thing on the.
The only thing I would need a quorum for is to end the meeting.
Otherwise, we will go on.
Yeah, but we're okay because Tom came in after you, so we're okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. good.
And
We have to sit here until
Sit here until somebody
November
comes back.
25th.
Vince comes back, yeah.
Any other business then? No,
Motion to adjourn?
second.
Do it, Chuck.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
All in favor?
Huh.
When is our?
Efficiency, I like it.
The 25th of November.
So the week of Thanksgiving.
25th of November.
Yep.
That's,
I may be out for that.
that's the
That's the
Monday.
fourth Monday. Yep.
Trying to think